Greetings and welcome to the Innovative Assessment Strategies. I am Dr. Melony Shemberger, and I'm glad that you are joining us. Our guest today is Dr. Sidney Martin, and we're going to have an opportunity to hear from him about his strategy in terms of how he does innovative assessment in his class. But first, I want to give him the opportunity to really share some information about himself.
Thank you, Dr. Shemberger. I appreciate being here. I'll tell you a little bit about me. I'm an instructor in the School of Engineering at Murray State University. I teach primarily electrical engineering courses and occasionally some mechanical courses as well. I have engineering students in my classes. They are often technology students looking for a degree in engineering technology. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in electrical engineering, and I have an educational doctorate from Murray State University. And my focus is in STEM, and my research area is in the retention of underrepresented minorities in engineering. And assessment has something that I've always been interested in. And when you contacted me, I thought, oh, I have this really short activity that I found works well for me. And I thought I'd share it with you and others. So hopefully it works well for them also.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And that is a perfect segue. He's going to share with us a strategy in which it is described as a quick and easy strategy to implement formative assessment. So Dr. Martin, will you go ahead and describe what that strategy is, how you do that?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. What happened to me is particularly, I think, like all of us in the pandemic, I had trouble getting students to even think about asking a question. And it was just a sea of masks, some eyes, maybe a hat on the person's head, and all you could see was, occasional lookup from a laptop or other device. And I'd ask people, even if it was, did you have a good weekend? And it would be crickets. And then trying to get feedback during the class, I couldn't see if people were questioning any of the things that I was teaching about. And so those normal cues that I'd have of, the painful stare or the shaking of a head or something, they were just hard to see. And I was teaching in an auditorium environment because we were trying to spread students 6 feet apart. And so now a space that was meant for 225 may have 40 people or 50 people in it, and they're just everywhere. So I found that it was hard to determine whether or not I was successful or if there were questions. And I'd ask for questions and nobody would raise their hand or make an indication. And I found an easy method, because I could use some of the others of, putting things up on the board and have them respond to them or, use their phones or to text me or something like that. But I'm always saving scratch paper, paper that sometimes it's just so hard to grade on the screen that I print something out. And then I hate to just throw that into the recycle bin. So if there's some identification on it, I'll just mark it with a dark marker and put it in the pile. And then I cut those sheets into thirds and have a stack of paper that I carry with me to class. And at the beginning of class, I pass them out on desks at the front of the auditorium or classroom. And that way they're there. And the students have come to realize that I'm going to ask them at the end of the class to write their name on it, because that way I don't have to take attendance, and take up class time to see whether 50 people are there or not. But when they pass in the sheets at the end and have at least their name on them, I'll know that they were in the classroom. But I also give them some prompt. I'll say, would you grab a sheet of paper? They can use mine or theirs, and write down your name. And do you have any questions at all from today's lecture? and give them that opportunity to write down anything that they want. And I may ask them, well, I talked about, present worth today. And did you understand what the concept of equivalence of money from now to some future time? Does that make sense to you? If you didn't understand it, just let me know. And what's confusing to you? So I would collect these at the end of the class, and then when I get back to the office, I just go through and enter in who was in the classroom and who wasn't. Usually I keep attendance mainly so that they'll continue to show up. I tell them that it's because the registrar is going to ask me when the last time is that you attended, if you just stopped attending. This way I give them an answer, but I don't, during the pandemic, I haven't put it in as a penalty for their attendance, but at least I know whether they were there or not. And I think it is also a motivation that I know you were there. And so they would write questions. Some of them would be very indicative of they didn't understand the topic. Sometimes I get that person who asks me, do you believe in ghosts? And, I say, well, I'm not sure. They're trying to catch me, but I would take that question and turn it into, well, I've seen some of those shows where people use electrical meters to find the EMF field. And we're talking about that type of multimeter today. And so that's a use. And so if there are ghosts, then this device could probably find them. So I'm not sure, but if we register something while we're here in class, well, maybe there was a ghost visiting us. I really don't know. So, but they'd have very pointed questions sometimes. And then sometimes it's just that, well, we have an exam coming up. Will this type of question be on the exam? And if so, then I don't really understand how we calculate a particular value. And so those things I can address. So out of 50 students, maybe I get 4 or 5 pieces of feedback out of the class, but that was 4 or 5 pieces I didn't have when I was leaving. I wasn't sure whether I got through to the students or not. So this would allow me, what I would do is I often teach with, and particularly in the auditorium, with PowerPoint slides that are up over my head. And so I'd actually put those questions, sometimes 1 or 2 on a slide, and put them up overhead. And I'd say, student asked, and there'd be, might change the grammar a little bit or whatever, but that's just basically put up whatever their question was. And then the other thing I'd ask afterwards was, did I answer your question? Now I'd look out there and then, maybe nobody'd even respond to admit that it was their question. But sometimes it would be, well, that's what I said, but it wasn't really what I meant, or you didn't hit it. So sometimes that would even allow a generation of discussion. So, or somebody would say, oh, I didn't understand that either, and I still don't. So could you go explain this aspect? So it would at least get people out from behind the mess. So it's a quick and easy thing to do. You go over and chop those papers into thirds. I don't try to make sure that, it's 11.5 divided by 3. It's just, it's 3 pieces of paper, and I go and they're uneven stacks. And I also feel, I'll explain to them, I feel better because I'm conserving and making that at least useful for something else. So that's my quick and easy assessment, and hopefully others find it useful.
I love it because you found a way to break through that mask barrier that I think was prevalent in almost any classroom that was still being held face-to-face during the pandemic. Is this something that you plan to do now that I know at Murray State University, we will be going more into, if you want to call it, the pre-COVID instances where the masks are gone. You might still have some students choosing to wear masks as well as some of the faculty and staff,
Yeah.
but for the most part, it's going to be pretty much pre-COVID. So is this a strategy that you plan to continue doing moving forward?
Yes, definitely, because one thing I don't like to do is take up class time to take attendance. So that is always a benefit for me. But the fact that somebody gets to ask the question, and also sometimes it's hard for me to come up with those things that may make the classroom interesting. In a way, having talked to you before, I know that at times faculty have to be entertainers. And sometimes I'm so focused on what is it that I'm going to be teaching that day that I forget the entertainment aspect. So if I'm going to talk about ghosts or aliens, or do I believe in something, if the students want to ask me that and it makes me seem a little bit more human, because engineers, we're not always the most exciting people in the world. I think we are, but others may not. So I think if it can add a little bit of levity even, I think it's good. I think it's a good assessment technique. It's so easy to do. And, in the ideas of sustainability I know I'm still going to print out stuff on paper. As much as I'm a believer in technology and can do, I love to teach online, but sometimes people put a 8, 10, 12 page paper or more together, and I can't assimilate it as easy on the screen. So I've got to print it out. And it just makes me feel better that I'm just not throwing it in the trash. Or a lot of times if my other alternative is that I'll put it through the shredder and it goes into my garden. But this seems to work well for the students and works well for me.
Excellent. I love it. And I'm sure that whoever might be watching this is also going to think, why didn't I think of that? And sometimes innovative does not have to involve technology. It can involve something that had been done previously, and we're just bringing it back in a new context. So yes. Thank you so much for sharing that strategy with us today, Dr. Martin. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I love being here and talking with you.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you for attending this session or this particular workshop looking at innovative assessment strategies. Thank you for your attention.